What's up, nerds, and welcome back to another That Nerdy Site show, a weekly podcast where the team members from That Nerdy Site get together to talk about our lives and all the things nerdy we love about them. This week, in another fireside chat, I am joined by Jazz Foster. How are you doing, Jazz?
I'm doing, Frank, I'm doing. And that's about as much as you can ask for in this time. So.
No, I know it's definitely crazy times, so I think it's good though that we can at least like come together and kind of sit together on a podcast and just kind of talk about like how everything's going or what we've been up to.
I agree. Good to socialize, and it's nice to catch up with friends, so.
And if you enjoy what you hear, please remember to like, subscribe, rate, and review the podcast everywhere you can. If you're feeling extra generous, you can support us on Patreon at patreon.com/thatnerdysite, like all these wonderful people did. Welcome to the Patreon community. And then there's nobody for this week, or for this week. But I do want to give a huge shout out to our Patreon producers James L and Jason Bellevue, the homies there, getting another shout out this month.
Yay.
And so yeah, that's pretty much everything we have in kind of some of the rigmarole here. So we can just kind of dive right in. I guess we'll kind of just to get it out of the way a little bit. I don't want to just keep kind of rambling on my side over here. But I do want to talk about or update on some of the games that I've been playing, kind of like I talked about last week on the podcast. I finally did get Persona 5 Royal. That finally got delivered, and I've finally been able to play that. So that's been fantastic. Uh, I'm
Nice.
I'm still in the first dungeon. I have lost my save progress twice now and have had to basically
Oh my
restart,
god.
so I'm having a bad time there. I will say it's not the game's fault. I think my PS4 Pro is dying, which is very unfortunate. So it's basically locked up in like a menu, and I've had to just like restart it or unplug it or just like, turn it off. And like, so I've lost like all of my progress like twice.
That's awful. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, like I guess I'm just also just like venting here on it too, but like I at least like they have it built in. The thing that saves it a little bit is because you can like that like it's Persona's a slow burn, so like losing like hours is like huge, but you can fast forward past it. So I've kind of was like fast forwarding, trying to get back to like where I was again, which I'm
Hmm.
gonna have to do it again because I still have to go back and redo it since this most recent time that it basically like crashed on me.
God damn, dude.
But
Save often, kids.
so this is the problem that with like Persona, or at least especially in the beginning, is like you can't just like open the menu and save. Like you have to be at like the point where it asks you to save or be in a safe room. And in
Ooh.
this intro part that I'm in, trying to like get through all like the day stuff and get into the first dungeon, there's like a week where there's like no save point, and this is where it's died on me like twice.
Wow. I don't know. I hesitate to say I don't know anything about Persona, but what I know about Persona is that Alex O'Neill likes it and Joey Noelle likes it, maybe?
I think she was a
And
fan
you
of
play
five.
it. I think I know there's been discourse about like which waifu is the best Persona 5 waifu, or I'm making that up. I think that's true though.
I mean,
That's all I know though.
with five, that's a conversation I think with all the personas, but I feel like that is a really strong contention with five. But in the
Mhm.
way that I almost feel like there's a lot of great choices, and I think like there's a lot of like validity on like all sides,
Mm.
including the
I
teacher. Like your homeroom teacher is an option, so that's fantastic.
Oh, hell yeah, hot for teacher.
She's kind of my favorite. There's also a goth doctor, and she's also kind of my favorite. But I guess
That sounds
I'm
hot.
doing all
Yeah.
the illegal stuff because I'm going after all the adults.
I respect that, I guess. Yeah. I can't. I have a real hard time with the like teacher relationship thing. Not because it's weird or whatever. But one of my best friends is a high school teacher, and he has told me so many stories of like he teaches sophomore chemistry, and he's had a lot of students who have been like, oh, we're so in love with him, they like think he's the hot teacher, all this stuff, and I can't now because I just think of him and I'm like, oh man, like it's so funny to me, but
Because that
teachers aren't hot anymore. He ruined that for me, I guess.
I feel like that just has to be like an uncomfortable situation, if anything, right? Like
It Oh, it's terrible. It's so great for me because I'm not a teacher, so it's not my problem. But like, he's had students where like he like they hand their test in and it's like got his name with hearts around it. I'm like, good luck with that, homie. 16 years old, creepy as hell. Not that he's into any of them. But then they'll come back, like, they'll graduate high school and they'll be in college and they'll come back and want to hang out with him, and he's like, ugh. So
Like where they don't like give it up. It's like still just like up
mhm,
on that
mhm,
level.
mhm. He was mentioning he's been a high school teacher for 5 years now, so good on him for the patience required. But before this whole uh cultural issue started happening, I guess. We had some bars we would frequent, and he told me, he was like, my first class of students just turned 21 this year, and if we see any of them at our bar, I'm just gonna die. I was like, cool, I'm gonna buy him a shot.
Yeah,
Like,
that's what I would
I
do,
I
right?
live for
Like,
that chaos. Like, I want them to come over. I want to hear about this. But he was very nervous because Austin is only so big.
yeah,
He was very nervous that he was like, we're gonna see one of them. I'm like, God, I hope so. And we haven't yet. But after this, maybe we'll see.
that's what I think is funny about Austin, though. Just as like an aside, even with what you're saying, there's
Mhm.
like there's over 1 million people here, and it should be huge, but it's like the smallest thing. You'll run into the same people constantly,
It's
and the people you
not
don't want
that
to see.
big. Always, always. I've run into so many
Yeah,
exes. I
yeah,
have so many exes. Wow. I've run into so many exes at bars where I'm like, oh, why? Why? There are 8,000 bars in Austin. Why this one? Yep. It's a small town after all.
yeah. Honestly, and I'm definitely in the same boat there, and so like that's what is weird. And I think I even just most had that. I think I just had that like most recently, even at like 7-Eleven. Like this is like a week ago. I just moved, and I was at 7-Eleven, and I was like, oh shit. And I think I'm tall, so I tried to like duck down behind the shelf, and I don't think it
You are
worked.
tall. Yeah. I bet it didn't.
I don't think it did, but I avoided a conversation, and it doesn't matter. So,
There you go. Mazel tov on the new apartment, by the way.
oh, thank you. Yeah, that is something.
Yeah.
I'm that's what also now that I'm finally moved and I got everything unpacked. That's why I was finally able to like play games and like watch TV finally.
Mhm.
And
Man, moving during this must have been something.
yeah, like it wasn't as bad as I thought it was gonna be, and I think that was probably partially because like it was 3 weeks ago maybe now that like we actually moved everything over, and I feel like if we
Mm.
were trying to do it like any time after that, it would have been like harder.
Yeah.
But we were able to still just like walk in and get like a U-Haul, and then we just moved everything, and like we still you're supposed to like social distance, but we had some people like some friends come help, and like
Sure. Yeah.
and then like so that was fun, and it was like a kind of a fun return to normalcy for like a minute, just to like be like,
I
oh, here's people, and like we have a drink together, like to celebrate the new place.
definitely get that. Yeah. Drinking alone, not as fun as anyone thinks it is. And I don't think anyone thinks it's fun, so that's where we're at.
No, I've never been a fan of that, and like especially with the quarantine and everything. I don't want to sound terrible, but like it's hard to just avoid slipping into like alcoholism.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And I was cuspy before, I'm not gonna lie, but like, yeah. I did a jello shot to cheers myself for being on this podcast, and I'm drinking a bottle of wine. So, quarantine's doing us well.
Yeah, exactly, and like that's like especially with I've been working from home, and it's just like it's tough not to just like slip into that randomly, like
Mm-hmm. Be safe, everybody. Don't overdrink. It's bad for you. I'm pretty sure.
be
Uh,
responsible.
yeah. Don't hurt your liver, man. On the like actual real talk, I'm afraid I've done myself liver damage, and not necessarily from drinking. Maybe from drinking, but I had surgery last year.
Hmm.
I had like a life-threatening condition. I don't know. I had emergency surgery. But before that, I was being treated with chemotherapy, which has more uses than cancer, it turns out. I did not have
I
cancer.
didn't know that.
Um, yeah, well, it's not, I don't advertise. I'm advertising it now, but I didn't advertise it. I had a cyst that they didn't treat away, it turns out, so I had to have the surgery. But yeah, so I was being treated. Did you know chemotherapy affects your liver? So every time I had it, they had to check to see if they were damaging my liver. And I never really heard back about that. And ever since then, I've had like way worse hangovers. I've just have felt awful. Drinking affects me more, and I'm like genuinely concerned that I have a broken liver at 24.
Yeah,
So that's been fun.
something to like follow up on like once everything like heal or like comes back to normal.
I probably should. Certainly not now. I think hospitals are a scary place right now.
Oh,
More
definitely.
so than more so than anyone ever thought they were before. But yeah, it's a serious time, and I don't necessarily. I'll check up on it later. You know what I mean? Like I don't think it's gonna kill me right now. We'll look into it once everything dies down. But yeah, that's a weird concern to have at 24. So
No, no, that's
I
the thing.
don't.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say I don't recommend getting a cyst. That's really where that was going because it leads to nothing but trouble.
Very low on the review scale of like would do again.
I would honestly call it a 0 out of 10. I don't know that there were any benefits to it. Yeah.
And so what I guess the only other thing I did want to mention with what I've been playing is with I did finally dive into Final Fantasy VI. Uh, I
Ooh.
don't have much to say about this because I didn't get that far into it. I got about like an hour in. Years ago, like 5+ years ago, when I played it, I made it like 30 minutes in. So I tried to beat that, and I
Mm.
did. And I
Okay.
put it down, and I have like my save there, but I just like then Persona 5 came Royale, so then I've just been doing
Mhm.
that. And then the fact that my progress keeps getting reset in that is like been delaying me further.
Yeah, that must be so frustrating.
Yeah, especially 'cause the first time it was like bad, and now I have to do it again, like all over again. So I mean, like I'm just gonna try to
Mhm.
get through it as fast as I can.
Yeah, of course.
Other than that, like I've been definitely all about it though. I definitely recommend Persona 5 Royale, and then Final Fantasy 6 has been interesting. I definitely it's cool. Like I'm enjoying it probably even more than I think I did before. But like I don't know when I'm gonna be able to like fit that in. Trying to juggle both of these, I guess.
Sure.
And then
I've
go ahead.
I was gonna say I've played games also.
Uh,
So if we're talking about games,
yeah, go ahead. What have you been playing?
I know it is shocking, right? But this is the level of boredom I've reached is that I'm trying out video games, giving that a shot. Um, I've been playing Katamari Damacy, which is an old game for me, but it's on the Switch now. I wrote a thing about it that is up on that nerdy site if anyone's curious to see the real deep dive into a very like esoteric game.
It's a great
But
game.
I've been playing that on the Switch. It's a great game. I love it. Logan wants to do Let's Plays of it, so maybe we'll see those coming.
I support
Um,
that.
yeah, Logan's always. I don't know if Logan's voiced this to anyone but me. Logan's dream for me, because he has dreams for me, because that's the kind of person that he is. He wants to do a Let's Play series called Jazz Plays, because I haven't played many video games, so he just wants me to play games that other people have played, and just to see how it goes, which could be interesting, because there's a lot of classic games I haven't played, like most of them, or all of them. I played Mario 64, but so he wants to do Let's Plays of Katamari, but I've been playing that. It's great. It's great. Um, I started playing Good Job too,
Uh,
which is I think an indie title maybe. I don't really know, but you play as like an office worker, but your dad owns the place, so he gives you little tasks to do, and they're kind of puzzles, but you can also just wreck shop and not fail the level. Like you could break everything, and as long as you get the thing to the goal, you pass. So that's been kind of fun to play.
Yeah, I had heard about that because I think that was
Mhm.
on Switch as well. And
Mhm.
yeah, like I had heard you're like the son of the office or the son of the boss who's like in the office and like you have like the challenges that you can do. And the one that was like
Mhm.
described to me is that like you have to get the workers like back into a conference room and like you could just like push them in there in the like their chairs or like you could do this elaborate setup to like build a slingshot and like slam them through the glass
Yep.
windows.
Yeah.
So I was like, this sounds
It
fun.
yes, it's fun. It's honestly like way harder to try to behave, which is maybe an interesting commentary. But like I've tried to do levels where I'm like, all right, I'm gonna try not to break anything and actually like weave my way around this maze, and it does not work. Like it's you never ever fail a level, but I've had D's in every category. And been like, you're fine though. I'm like, okay, well,
It's a passing
great.
passing grade. Make it on to the next one.
Hell yeah, it is. If it's not in your major, that's what I was told. But yeah, it's a fun game. It's a fun little like diversion, I think. So worth checking out, maybe.
Yeah, yeah. No, from what I've heard, it definitely sounds like it. That might be something we could even do videos on or something in the future too, possibly.
That'd be cool. It does have a co-op,
Oh,
so that
nice.
would be probably a good one. Yeah,
And so is that all the games you've been playing? Just kind of pretty much like those two?
that's what I've been focusing on. Yeah, I've been dabbling with Golf Story,
Oh, nice.
which is an old game, but that's been kind of a fun one. I played The Gardens Between a while back, but that was pretty short. Yeah, that's kind of it.
Well, it definitely sounds like some good picks, honestly, like some highlights on the Switch.
I'm getting in there. Yeah, Switch is kind of my console. If anyone has recommendations, I have the time, so throw them at me.
I mean, there's this great game that was my game of the year last year, Sayonara Wild Hearts, and I
Okay,
definitely recommend that. It's only like 45 minutes long though, maybe like an hour or so.
I'm fine with that. We'll check it
A
out.
lot of replayability though. I spent way more time with it than just like an hour.
Really nice.
And so yeah, I mean that's pretty much for all we've been playing. So then I have been watching a little bit of TV. Like I'm not normally really like a TV guy, but
Mhm.
there's been some more like free time here with kind of the everything going on.
Yeah.
And so I've been watching Dave, which is a Little Dicky's new show on FX. And I've been a fan of Little Dicky for like a really long time, and then he kind of like fell
Mhm.
off for a little bit almost because he's been working on this show for like years. So
Yeah.
he hasn't like been doing too much music lately or anything. So I was kind of like that was kind of disappointing. But now like he's back with this show, and I never like doubted that he could like make a good TV show or anything, but I'm really surprised by the quality of the show, honestly. Like I think it's funny. I think there's like really good characters in it. It's really well written and like even well acted. Like it's just a really well produced show on FX, and FX I guess just keeps killing it with these like mature late night comedies.
Yeah. That's awesome.
And I'm just like, I guess like I don't. There's not too much I can really like. I guess because like there's a lot going on in it that I think is great. So it's hard to just kind of like break down to like some simple things. But like I said, I think the characters and kind of like what he's doing, it tells actually like it tells like a deep story, and it's funny how it bounces between just like stupid things or like sex jokes, and then there's sometimes like a more serious conversation or like like so that's something that I think is really awesome about it. And there's a lot of like actual cameos from like other rappers. So like in the episodes I watched already, like Macklemore's in there, and there's like Young Thug.
That's awesome.
Yeah, like that. The Macklemore thing I thought was again like was really funny. Like I don't want to like ruin it. I guess I kind of ruined it just by mentioning that he's in it. But like
Nah.
there's like I love the way that some of these episodes just have these bits that like build up to something at the end, and like there's a lot of like things that I just think are like really funny about it. So I'm curious to keep watching more, and I'm assuming it's apparently getting really great ratings. So I'm assuming they're probably going to do more. So that's definitely good to hear.
Yeah. As soon as they can, anyway.
Yeah, that's kind of the other side of it too. And the
Mm.
only other thing I guess I would highlight too is that he has the hit like these actors play his like Jewish parents that are like super overbearing that he's like always on the phone with. And so like that's another like I think like fun dynamic, and especially because like they're based on like his actual parents, and he used to like
Yeah.
record their conversations and put those like on his albums like in between songs. And like it's funny how I was like, wow, these actors really nail like the exactly like what those recordings were like. I thought that like that's just another thing I think was super funny about it.
Yeah.
And so that's pretty much that is really all I've been watching. At least like I've just watched a couple episodes of that, and I want to finish up the rest. Have you been watching anything in your time?
Yeah. I started the show Community. Um. And I made some joke a few weeks ago. It was like a bunch of white dudes recommended Parks and Rec to me, like a lot of dudes. And be like, you have to watch it. It's so funny. And I watched some of it, and it was funny enough. Whatever. But like, Community is way better than that. And so I don't know. Like, maybe it didn't get the recognition. I don't know. But like, it's very, very funny. Um. It's really clever. I think it's interesting how like I'm not that far in. I think I'm like a season and a half in, maybe closer to the end of season 2. And so far no one has really grown as a character, and that is really funny to me. They all just kind of are consistently like not great people and owning it. Like, okay,
And
you know.
I think that stays pretty consistent, at least from like what I can remember.
Mhm. Yeah, they're all like at college, they're trying to learn and like just no personal growth. That's hysterical, but it's a really good cast and it's just very very clever. So I've been really enjoying it. Uh, that's so I've been doing that, I guess. Other than that, a lot of like cop show reruns, mostly terrible things, because that's kind of my bread and butter. But yeah, Community's been great.
Yeah, like Community is definitely a great show. I'm glad you're diving into it. Like I haven't seen all the episodes, but I've seen some of them, and I
Hmm.
definitely like. I think like I kind of agree with everything you're saying there, and I'm glad you're like checking it out. Or you kind of just like decided to. What is there anything in particular that made you just decide to like put that on or check it out? Like,
It popped up. I know. I mean, it's I guess it's I wouldn't say it's Donald Glover's biggest thing, but like I would argue that it was his breakout acting role, so that was interesting. Um, but I was watching. Oh my god, I'm not gonna remember now. Harmon Quest. There
oh,
you go.
nice.
I have to catch up on that. I think I'm pretty far behind. But I've been watching Harmon Quest, which is Dan Harmon's D&D kind of live show, where he has a guest player on every week, and it's always one of his famous friends, and they have fun adventures. I maybe you've seen it. I don't know. Maybe we have not.
I, I I'm definitely familiar. I haven't like actually seen it though.
It's pretty clever, and the people he gets on are very like willing to jump in and do silly character voices, and they're very excited about their character and being able to play. But so I was just kind of looking up Dan Harmon because of that, and he's the Community runner, the writer. He was for a few seasons, and then he left, and then he came back, and that was a whole dramatic thing apparently. But so I just checked it out because I was like, it's on Hulu, and I was enjoying Harmon Quest, so but it's been worthwhile so far.
Yeah, it's I think that's funny. Yeah, like to come in like after the fact because I remember following it like when it was on. Like I definitely always like I guess I don't want to say I heard like a lot about it, but I definitely heard like people that would like it or was like, oh, Community is a good show. And then I remember there was always this like drama with like people on the show or like leaving the
Mm,
show and then like coming back or like it getting canceled and then coming back on like a different platform on like I think it might have been Hulu is like who brought like paid for like another season or
yeah.
something. Um, so I think that like it's funny to come in like after the fact and you're just like, oh, I guess all this crazy shit happened, but like it's a good TV show. Like I think it's funny.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Like I know that I at least I've heard that like Dan Harmon got let go maybe after one of the seasons because he was so hard to work with, but they just couldn't write anything as funny as he wrote, so they had to bring him back, which is a very silly argument to have, I guess. But like, haven't noticed anything so far. I suppose I'll get there.
Yeah, I think that is like later in, but definitely would be curious to hear like what you think, and like we could definitely talk about it on like future episodes too. Is you kind of like, I assume it sounds like you're going to keep making your way through the series,
Yes,
right?
I'm pushing through. Like I said, I have the time for all this stuff, but it's been funny. It's been fun to watch. So I'm making my way through. Like I said, I think I'm halfway through season 2. Um, Slow but steady.
And then I guess I also we can talk a little bit about the two like the cop shows that you were kind of watching there. Like,
Sure.
I'm just honestly though, I mean, I'm curious. I know we talked about it a little bit, I think beforehand too, but I mean, like it, I know those are super popular, and I'm definitely familiar with them. So I'm just kind of curious, like, what exactly, what have you been watching?
Sure.
Like,
I maybe this is just like a personal preference. I try to find the niche cop shows on any streaming platform. Just like the stuff that I haven't seen yet. Because growing up, my mom watched a lot of cop shows, my grandma did, and so I've kind of encountered most of the big ones. So I like to find new stuff. From that, I've been watching the Criminal Minds spinoff. which, upon looking it up, uh,
I think it was just like Criminal Minds LA or something, I swear. Like it was not like
it,
that much thought put into it.
suspect behavior, I think, is what it was.
Oh,
Something like
okay,
that.
then I was way
Well,
off.
there was an NCIS LA, so you weren't that far off. My mom watched that. Okay. So I've been watching that. It's only a season long. I love like just little bite size. If it's a season, I'll push through it. Um, I've also been watching The Glades, which was a cop show from A&E. Um, the channel, the station, the network. Uh,
Yeah, the one that has like the actual, that also plays actual cop
Yeah,
shows.
yeah, like real life shit. Well, they made up a cop show, I guess. It's set in Miami. It's trashy, but like uh in a very catchy way. Like I'm still watching it, I guess. So that's what I've been up to. We love a spin-off. It's interesting how many cop shows do a spin-off because they think they can recreate the magic of the original and it'll get them more money. And I don't know how
I, I
often that works.
I don't think it works out most of the
Yeah.
time, and I guess it's because they really think it's based on like, all right, well, it's based on like the premise, like the or like the like the guy murderer of the week or
Mhm.
like the who done it, and then, but I feel like a lot of the times with a lot of those shows for the people especially who are into it, there is that, but it is also like, well, it's like these
Yeah,
characters doing that.
absolutely.
It's not just the random group of people you get, and even if they're good actors, it's like it's not how it works. Like
Mhm. I would say the only one where it like really was successful was Law and Order. Cuz
which they did a
they
lot.
did well, yeah, so they had Law and Order was the OG, I think. And they had Criminal Intent, which some people watched, I assume. SVU was like the big one. Everybody watched SVU, at least momentarily. I mean, that show's on like 20 seasons or something. Um,
Yeah, still
and
going.
it's getting a spin-off of a spin-off.
SVU is getting its
Did
own
you see that?
spinoff.
Yeah, yeah, they're bringing back Christopher Maloney, who was
Oh,
yeah
okay.
one of
I
the
didn't know he
two.
left again.
Yeah, yeah. Well, he left the show. He was one of the original detectives. He's also just a handsome man. But I guess they're making a spin-off with his character, but not bringing him back. They're just spinning off. I don't know. Law and Order has had a bunch, but yeah, Criminal Minds has had I think two. NCIS had at least two. And I don't think it ever really works. You're right. People watch it for the characters. They don't watch it. No one's watching a cop show because they're like, man, I love how every episode they catch a criminal. Like that's not why people watch this. So
It,
yeah,
like, I think that's definitely like it had part of it, or if anything, I do want to meet the guy who's like, I watch it because every single time they catch a criminal, except for the times where it's a two-part episode and they don't, but then they always get them. Don't
yeah.
worry. And I'm just like
Okay, sir.
I want to meet that
Yeah.
guy. And so this is like I you know you didn't mention this in the tier of like what you're actively watching, and I'm assuming this falls into the tier of like already seen it or don't
Mhm.
care. But where does CSI Miami like fall
Oh
on this
man,
spectrum for you?
what a
Like
deep cut. I have watched CSI Miami more than I'm proud of.
I've seen a lot of that
I was gonna
show.
say,
Like I can't. My family was like a big fan, especially like my mom.
yeah,
Like that was like a thing
my
growing up.
mom loved cop shows. I can't remember if I've ever mentioned this. Logan has been known to say, because Logan and I are roommates, and he's like, I know what kind of mood you're in based on the cop show you're watching and how trashy it is. So anytime I'm watching CSI Miami, he's like, Jazz, I'm worried about you. Which is fair. But I've seen it a few times. Honestly, I kind of love it. Not because it's a good show, but it's just so it's delightfully trashy. You know, like it's so overacted and it's so overly dramatic for no reason, and the like sunglasses whipping off, and it's just like fun. It's not good, but it's fun. So I've seen it a few times. They kill off my favorite
It,
character for a dumb reason, and so I always stop watching right after that out of spite, and then start watching like 6 months later. But start over.
I think I know. I think I know who you're talking about. Who was that?
Oh, Speed.
Which one was that?
Tim
I guess maybe I'm gonna have to Google
Tim
this.
Speedle. I can't believe I remember his name, by the way. I'm a little ashamed of this. But he was in the first season. Spoilers for CSI Miami. I'm so sorry if anyone was gonna get into
Oh,
it now.
I think I remember this
He
now.
like,
No, please get into
yeah,
it.
it's at some point in the second season they like get into a dramatic shootout, and they have to investigate him because they don't know, but it's like his gun was jammed because he didn't clean it. Oh my god, it's a whole thing. And then like 5 episodes later, he dies because he didn't clean his gun out again, and it was lame as hell. Yeah, he was my favorite character, and they kill him.
No, I definitely remember that, and I think it's funny though too because I was trying to think because like they it's now that you mention it, I almost like I forgot about him and I forgot that that happened until right
Mm-hmm.
now. But then I'm like, there's just other characters that just get completely killed off, or like, all right, I guess we have to do something,
Yeah,
like you
yeah.
know.
There's a character in the first season. I don't remember her name, but it was the girl who like leaves midway through because she can't handle it or whatever the reason in the show was. But from what I've heard, the reason she left the show is because she didn't have good chemistry with the lead actor. Um,
Horatio.
yeah, the guy that plays Horatio. He just didn't like her that much, and he's such a like dramatic, you know, attention whore or whatever. Not to be too rude, but like he was so self-important that he was like, she can't be on the show anymore because we don't get along, and so she left the show. Don't know if that's true or not, but it's fun if it is.
I would almost believe
I
it, and
definitely
but I
would.
mean like when I think that show was honestly like surprisingly funny. I think it honestly was probably the epitome of like that. I don't really like, or at least I don't have much against that type of show, but I don't love like Law and Order specifically, even though that was another huge hit with like everyone in my family.
Yeah.
But like when you're talking about, I guess when you when you take it up to the level of like 11 that CSI Miami is at,
Mhm.
then I'm very interested
It's
in like everything that's happening.
yeah,
Like,
it's kind of lighthearted despite the content, and it like I don't think that CSI Miami ever takes itself too seriously. Like I think CSI does it. Like the Vegas, the original, I think sometimes it gets really like serious about it. It's like we're solving crimes in Las Vegas, and CSI Miami's just like whatever. And I respect that in a cop show. I think that that's what we're going for, you know? It's goofy. And that's the point.
yeah, honestly, and I think what I think we hit on though, almost like accidentally, I think we figured out that the only time this I feel like the spin-off is like has been wildly successful, other than I guess we talked about Law and
Yeah.
Order, but like with CSI, because like it started I think with Las
Mhm.
Vegas, but that was like my least favorite I think, because then they had like New York and
Yup.
then they had Miami,
Yeah.
and I much preferred both of
Yeah.
those.
New York had Gary Sinise, didn't it? Am I
I
making
think
that
yeah,
up?
yeah, no, it
Yeah.
did, yeah,
That was
like.
pretty good. I did actually watch a couple seasons of CSI New York before they took it off Hulu or whatever. And it was good. So I agree with you. Yeah. The original CSI just wasn't as good as its spin-offs.
I'm definitely like, I guess I just found out that I had this opinion right now, but like, I definitely have that. I'm on that opinion. Like, I'm
Mhm.
definitely, that's my opinion there.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to, oh, the only other thing I'll touch on before we like move on past this is, that my favorite character on New York, CSI New York got killed. And because he was the like the techie nerdy guy, and like he was the one that was like the hacker who was always like I'm in like all the time or whatever, you know.
I'm looking it up.
And
It's been a long
he gets
time.
like I don't remember his name, but I feel like I remember liking him for just being because he was like the funny nerdy one that like would get like was always kind of like
Mm.
zany. And if I remember correctly, I don't remember who, but somebody they didn't like or who had they had like some long-standing grudge against like blows him up like in his apartment. Like, so
Jesus.
there's just an episode where he just like logs into his computer in like the beginning of the episode, and then his apartment like explodes, and then I
Wow.
think the episode is them trying to figure out who killed this guy. Like,
Jesus. Who? Wait. I'm trying to like scroll through every character on this show now because I need to know who this is.
let me try to pull it up and see because I don't remember. I remember it was a guy, and I think I remember him just being. I just remember him being kind of just like a blonde like dude
Sure.
who was like their hacker guy. I just don't remember like anything else about
Every
him.
cop show has a hacker. That's standard. The because I mentioned I was watching the Criminal Minds spinoff, which is not great by the way. Like it's fine, whatever. They use the same hacker as the first one because apparently the FBI only has one hacker for the entire Federal Bureau of Investigation. They just have the one chick. and that's all that she does, and she does it for everybody. So that was kind of. I'm sure they were doing because they were like, look, it's a character you recognize, so please keep watching. But
It was like they're trying to do some kind of like shared universe, you know? They're like, hey, look, it's the same
I did,
world.
yeah, yeah. That was the point. They were like, look, she's also here because they're working together. But I think it just kind of, for me, it didn't work. Oh, was it?
I guess this still probably happens sometimes, but like I miss when they would just like in the old with these older cop shows when they would just do the like crossovers
Yeah.
where like other they were hunting the same person or someone was in someone else's like territory so they had to like work together or whatever. Like
Mhm.
that's like I feel like that is just something that doesn't happen as much as it should anymore.
It definitely doesn't happen as much. I'm sure some shows still do it. I haven't really seen a new cop show in like a while. I watched the first season of Prodigal Son. That's the most recent cop show I've seen, I think. Uh,
I'm not even familiar with that one, I don't think.
it's I really liked it. It was on my it was on my top 10 list for cop shows of the decade. Because the acting was stellar, but it's recent. It aired last year, I think. I couldn't tell you what station it aired on, but it was good.
And yeah, like I guess I haven't heard of that one, but I'm glad to hear that like honestly like out of all of these, especially because there is like a lot, or at least over the history, there's been like a lot. So like I guess that it's good to hear that that's even in like the top tier.
I really did enjoy it. The writing was cool, and like I said, the acting. It has Michael Sheen as a psychotic serial killer who is the father of the main character, um, which is interesting.
I mean, he's a great actor, so I'll definitely
He's amazing,
stand.
and he's very good in the show. I really do recommend it, which is kind of rare for a cop show, because usually I'm aware that that's a me thing, but it's good.
I think there's definitely a huge audience for those out there, though. Like, especially just because, like, I know at least like on TV or like on cable, they would pull in like huge numbers. So I imagine they're still doing well on streaming. Like,
Yeah, that makes sense.
and so that I guess that yeah that was I think that was fun though, just like to go over some of the cop shows and some of the TV shows we've been kind of watching here. The only other thing I guess is what we'll probably talk about for the rest of the episode, but I thought like a bulk of this would probably be taken up
Mm.
by is just I guess the just the generalized topic of D&D, but I definitely want to kind of hear where you're at on this. So you've been playing in a campaign recently, or been going on with you in
I
D&D?
have, yeah. Me and D&D have a storied history, I would argue. I've been playing it for 4 years now, I think.
Nice.
It's
Yeah, because that's definitely a long
it's been a
time.
while with a few different groups. I've learned a lot. So recently, my friends were playing in a campaign, and they invited me to play because they saved the same NPC twice. And so the dungeon master, who's a friend of mine, was like, "All right, well, I wasn't gonna let you have her, but like, you've saved her twice. She's probably aligned with you, so now you have this NPC." And my best friend, the teacher, was like, "Well, what if it was a player?" And kind of got me in the game. So I'm playing as an angel who just they've saved her so many times now she gets to play, which is pretty cool. I've only played a couple sessions, but it's been a lot of fun. It's a dungeon crawler, so we're kind of just going room to room and kicking butt and taking stuff. Uh, but I love D&D. Anytime I get to play it, it's exciting for me. So it's been fun, and it's been super fun to play a character that I didn't build. Just something that kind of got passed to me. Uh, but D&D is great. It always has been. I've played some incredible characters in the last 4 years. Some stuff I'm really proud of. The last character I built was a smuggler who smuggled stuff in bagpipes because no one ever asks you to play the bagpipes. So she could walk around with them and like no one's ever gonna be like, "Can you play those?" No one wants that. So it was very subtle. I was really proud of her. But yeah, it's great, and honestly, it's really easy to play in this in the era of social distancing that we're in, it's very easy to play that way. That's how we're playing now, obviously. So just one person sets up a map and has like little, they make little X's on where everybody is and just moves them around as assigned. And it's a great way to spend time with friends while still, maintaining a distance, I would say.
No, like I definitely agree with that. Like especially like with what you're saying, like in this kind of time, like I've seen a lot of people post online that they're keeping their groups going, or like some people are starting groups or doing like one-offs, like trying to just like get together and just be on like Discord or whatever, use like Roll20 or something. So
Yeah.
like that, I think that's definitely super cool. So what I have a couple questions. I guess I'm just curious. So with the campaign that you're playing, I don't know if you may know, but is it one of the actual like structured campaigns, or is it like homebrew?
Um, it's not one of the structured campaigns. I know it's in the setting of Tal'Dorei, which is Matt Mercer's campaign setting for Critical Role. Um, he released a published book of information about Tal'Dorei, location, and gods, races, stuff like that. Like it's all in there and stuff relevant to his campaign. And I know that we're set in Tal'Dorei, so we're using that book and we're using those deities and those locations. I don't know if this is a campaign published for his setting or if it's something that my DM homebrewed. I think it's something that I don't think it's something my DM made, I guess. Not to say that he couldn't, but there were like 40 rooms in this dungeon. I don't really think he went into that. So I do think it's something that he got from somewhere, but it's not from Wizards of the Coast, as far as I know, because Tal'Dorei is a separate entity. So maybe it's a Matt Mercer creation. I would have to look it up, but I don't want to get spoiled. So for now, just know
No, yeah.
it's a dungeon crawler, um, with like multi rooms, and there are temples of torment and stuff like that. If you Google it, you'll probably find it.
No, but yeah, like I definitely I think that sounds cool because I know Critical Role is like super popular
Mhm.
too, and I know Matt Mercer puts in like a lot of great work doing a lot of the stuff that he does, and I know he does put out like a lot of like content stuff, and even just like makes like classes and like entire stuff like,
Yeah.
and I think like Wizards is even like bringing some of his stuff into like official like
Mhm.
editions, which is really
Yeah.
cool. So I mean, like I definitely like that's another thing about like D&D that I thought was really cool, or at least on that front. With the character you're playing, so like you said that like obviously since they kind of like had saved her a couple
Mhm.
times, and then you had kind of come into the role of actually like playing her, and then so you didn't actually like roll that character. So like how what is the character, and like how is that
Yeah.
going?
She is a deva, strictly speaking, um, which best translates to an angel, but basically she's a higher up follower of a deity. Um, she's actually a creature. So she, like I said, she was an NPC. They saved her from this dungeon twice, and so my friend the DM was like, "Okay, she can play along with you." Deva is a creature that's in the probably the Dungeon Master's Guide, but it's not a playable race, which means there wasn't really anything to build. So when I started playing, the DM gave me the base monster stats for the Deva. Not that she's a monster, but she's in the monster manual, whatever. And I'm just playing at base stats. So I have a weapon and I have a few features that I can use, and I have a set number of hit points, but I will never grow. Um, Unless he homebrews that himself. But so I just kind of was set at like uh, challenge rating 10, which basically puts me at about level 10 for a character. And I have some godlike features. I have a lot of radiant damage, and I can talk to my god. Um, but not many things that I get to like shift and control. I have set stats for the most part, which is kind of cool. I've never done that before.
Yeah, no, like that definitely sounds cool. Like, or it sounds like it, but like, are you enjoying that aspect of it, or just kind of like kind of having it locked where you don't really have to like mess with a lot of stuff?
It's been interesting. It's very different, and I have been having fun with it. I love building a character, just because I like seeing how far I can push some certain things and stuff like that. But it's been fun to have a character pre-made that I just have to play. You play within, you know, she is chaotic good, her like personality, so to speak, because of who she follows. Um, but she's also been imprisoned for, like 500 years because of what happened in the game already. It's been fun to try to conform to those guidelines and see if I can play a character that fits in, as opposed to just playing whatever I want. It feels like more of a challenge, which is pretty cool. Because, like I said, I've been playing D&D for a while now, so it's always fun to come across a challenge that I haven't seen yet.
And with like D&D especially, that's definitely possible because it kind of almost is like pretty infinite, really.
Oh, sure.
Like, it's especially with like home brewing
Hmm.
stuff, like you can always kind of like have new experiences or kind of run into new challenges or ideas. Like, so that's something that's definitely fun about
Yeah,
it.
I mean, I've never played the same character twice, but especially with homebrew stuff, like there's so many interesting places you can go. Um, my favorite character that I've ever built was for a homebrew campaign that my friend Alex made. We were all pirates. It was a pirate campaign, and Alex made a bunch of like uh, other pirates basically for us to fight. And I ended up being, I think we got to like level 16, but I was this tiny little fighter girl. She was like 3 feet tall. She had like 10 weapons on her at all times. She was a halfling, and she just kicked so much ass. Because Alex gave us so much like leeway for what we could do. She could kill an NPC with a blowgun. She had a sword that like stole souls. She was so cool. She's my favorite character I've ever made because of the amount of wiggle room that we got from being in a homebrew. So
That's what that's kind of like my favorite part of it too. I DM'd one
mm,
time where and I pretty much most of it was like just the world and all the story and everything that was happening was all just like homebrew. And then a lot of the character or a lot of the monsters I just kind of made up and I tried to just rip existing stat blocks and like apply it to like made up
yeah.
things. And but that's where when I was trying to is always give people like a lot of leeway for like what they were trying to do because to me playing that's like the funnest thing is just like doing wild stuff that's like especially that like I guess even technically on paper you shouldn't be able to do or even if you just kind of like explain it the right way it kind of justifies it
Hmm.
but like I think that's like the funnest part and like where you really get like creative and weird, you know.
I agree. I think we always called it the rule of cool. And the DM that I played with the longest was my friend Ali. We had a set group. We played a lot of the like Wizards of the Coast campaigns, and Ali was a rule of cool DM, and he was very much like, if you can describe it to me and you can convince me, you can do it. And that gave us a lot of leeway to do some really crazy stuff. Like I remember, I don't remember the exact scenario. I just remember that one of my compatriots like fell off a bridge, and I jumped off after her and cast like Featherfall on her so she wouldn't die. And then she believed that she could fly. And our DM was like, "Yeah, okay. Like you can do that. That's fine." And for the rest of the campaign, she believed she could fly because I was able to like cast that on her while I was falling. Um, yeah, I think that doing that rule of cool really creates some interesting character dynamics. Um, and it's more worth it than trying to be a stickler for the rules.
No, I definitely think so, and especially like from my perspective of like when I did that, I really, I guess I took it from the other like improv perspective too. Of it's like I try to treat it as like yes and, you know, so it's
Oh,
not
sure,
like
yeah, yeah.
there is no like nah that doesn't happen or like nah that's not how it is. It's like yes and now you can like you can fly or like you think you can do that, you know. Like I think that's fun. Like I think that's where it is like the most interesting or like where you get like the best stories too.
Yeah, I agree.
And then that's so I've been I guess I'm trying to think of the because you said you've been about almost like 4 years now.
Mhm.
I think I'm at like three, maybe two and a half, like somewhere in there.
Mhm.
Uh, I'm definitely not like the expert, but we had a like a weekly campaign that we had going for like over 2 years,
Wow, nice.
or nearly there. It is still actually ongoing. I just kind of stepped away from it more recently when we kind of started doing this because it's like we were doing it every single week. And even though it was fun, it's just like that is like the entire night, like 1 day a
Oh
week,
yeah,
and that just takes up like a lot of time, you know?
yeah.
And so like I still have my character. That's still like my favorite character in like the minimal ones I played. I definitely am a big fan. I put a lot of work into it. It is I'm a fighter. I'm a tiefling, which is like my favorite race, just kind of like a devil demon type
Mhm.
thing. A- And I the whole have like a whole backstory that I've worked up there, and we have a lot of things going on in like our universe. It's all homebrew, pretty much of like what my DM Dylan has made. And we actually, one of the things that we were excited about it, I was going to say this recently happened, but now that I think back on it, this was like a year ago, if not longer.
Okay.
Uh, like where we actually in the campaign we got a bar, so we were like owners of like a tavern and like inn.
Nice.
So that's something that I'm definitely like a fan of. I'm always trying to keep up with on like how the tavern is doing, and I like as you're out there like doing these like missions and trying to like get stuff, I'm always trying to just collect things like for the
Yeah.
tavern.
Got to keep your business
I'm
alive. I get it.
Yeah, honestly, and especially because like that's just like that's like the when you're playing like an actual video game and you have like that home base that you can like totally deck out and decorate and keep upgrading, like that's what I get addicted to. So that was definitely like where I was like, all right, this is it.
Yeah. Yeah, I D&D has all these like little elements that I think really make it a game for everybody. You can find anything you're trying to find in it. I think it's super cool. You've been upkeeping a tavern this whole time because that's what you want to do. It's like
Yeah, because like we got it and like we did something and then we got like the deed for it and then we kind of like you got it like restored and then there's a guy who kind of like runs it and there's other people who like work
mhm,
there and then as we kind of like come in and out that's where now like we would like live like where you'd be like okay this is where you would like you have like a room where like all your stuff is you can like even leave like equipment there
yeah.
and even as we're kind of like out it kind of like it's just like that thing of I always try to keep track of like the days that are going by because then it's like every week it's like or I think it's every week it'd be like okay now you got to roll because then you got to see like how did the tavern do and I'd be like we better be making money like out here
Yeah.
but that's just like a fun kind of like a thing that I definitely like. There is like a lot that like a with like new things like we were talking about and like creativity going on there that I think is like it's definitely a fun kind of like game and like thing you can do and that's where I feel like sometimes the only like sometimes I feel like it can get like restricting where well, like with all of just like some of the things that are like on paper and have trying to make everything work. But I think that's where like when we were going back to before, like when you just kind of have that leeway and just kind of like yes and I think that's when it's like really fun and just having a good time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did you ever think about like ever DMing like your own campaign or doing even one of like the campaigns that like Wizard put out like Dragon Heist or something?
I've thought about it certainly. I don't know how good at it I would be. So I would be willing to try it, but only if I had a group of players that were understanding, I guess. Because I've never done it before and it seems hard. Like, I've had some really great DMs. I've been really lucky to have some really great DMs, and they work really, really hard at it. And like I said, my main DM Ali like would have just pages of notes for any possible path we could choose, and he was incredible, and yeah, he still is, and so I would never live up to that. So I would need some players with patience, and if I had that, then I would probably try. Um, but yeah, I mean, being a DM is hard, and I huge respect to anybody that wants to be a DM or tries to be a DM because it takes so much just brain power to figure it all out.
Oh, definitely. Like, because I think it might almost be worth it, at least just trying it once. Like, but it definitely makes sense, like what you're saying there. Because, like, I know that there is like a lot of people who are like that, And then there's like, and I know even from my side where like it took a lot of work to get everything going, and like especially like I said, because I had kind of homebrewed pretty much all
Mhm.
that or most of it, and like it took a lot of work to get going, and then it's like this crazy thing of like there was a lot, then when it actually got going there's just a lot of things you're just like not prepared for,
Yep.
and you I guess you just can't be.
Mhm.
And then there's even things where like people immediately are just doing things that you didn't expect, and like in the campaign that I did, the party burned down a house
Mhm.
that didn't exist when I made the campaign.
Yep.
So I was like, that's kind of what I always go back. One of the things I go back to is I was like, and but that's where it keeps going back to like the yes and I try to like with mine, I feel like I know if I ever would go back to it, I would try to still do it how I had it, but I would even try to just bullet point it more where it was like I wasn't trying to like lead through a specific story, but I definitely probably had too much of like, okay, this is kind of where we'll go, and then this will happen,
Sure.
and I feel like that's where you can, like that's not how it really works out a lot of the time.
You can never predict what the player's gonna do. I think that's the hardest part of DMing is that like you can never you never know how people are going to react to a situation, so you have to be open to any possibility, and that's really hard to, be prepared for. So, good on you for letting your players burn down a building that didn't exist.
And but that's where I think that it was like fun though too, and like in the moment, it's like like I'm still like going through everything or just trying to like improv and even I guess just make it seem like this is all like supposed to happen.
Yep.
But I'm like, I think that, but I think that was like one of the funner memories from that session. And I only did it that one day and kind of went through, and we didn't finish quite like everything. And I just kind of never circled back to do like another session
Mhm.
because like you said though too, like it takes a lot of work. So it took a lot of work to do that. And then even in like a weird sort of sense too, even though it's like people I know and people who are already in my D&D group, it's like it takes a lot of energy to just like get up in front of people and just try to like lead this entire thing, you
Yeah.
know? And so I kind of think about trying to circle back and finish that, or probably I could probably what I would probably should do is just run it again, but just do it better, like cleaned up. But who's to say, I guess.
Sure.
But I would be curious if you ever like wanted to go and dive in or like try to do something. Like I think it might be worth checking out, or we could probably get some cool like patient players, I'm sure, from the site.
Oh, I'm always down to play Dungeons and Dragons. Absolutely always. So, I'll be here.
Oh yeah, yeah. Is there any like final thoughts you might have on D&D or like anything else that you may just want to throw out there?
I know I mentioned at the beginning, but I do think it's sort of it's a really great way to stay connected with your friends from a distance. You can play it pretty easily over any sort of like FaceTime, Skype, Zoom, whatever it is. You don't really need anything for it because you can find most of the materials online. You can get like a dice thrower app for free. You really don't need anything but a pencil and a piece of paper, and it's a really cool way to stay connected with people. Play a game, tell a story, whatever it is, and it's a lot of fun. So I think that it's a pretty cool option for the time that we're in, where you're not supposed to be, going out and seeing other people. Um, yeah, it's fun.
No, yeah, like I definitely agree with that. And I think it is a good thing for people to try, especially in this time, even if maybe they haven't played before, if they've been curious, maybe try to get a group together. I'm sure there's even probably plenty of people online who are just trying to find groups,
Oh,
of like people
definitely.
to play in this
Yeah.
time. And so that's, I'm sure, honestly, I'm definitely with you there that that's probably like a great way to do or kind of kill time while we're kind of in quarantine and trying to like kind of get back to some normalcy there.
Yeah.
Um, I think that pretty much wraps up this episode, but I do thank you for joining me. It's definitely been a great
Yeah.
conversation.
Thanks for having me. It's been good to talk to you, Frank.
Oh yeah, definitely. And did you happen to have any plugs for us?
Oh man, no. I mean, I'm still working on writing stuff. So maybe we'll see more of that in the future. But for now, check out that nerdy site. There's stuff coming out pretty regularly, and it's stuff we're all very proud of. So I would definitely look into that if you have the time, which you do, because you're not going outside. you're staying safe indoors.
And people can follow you. It's at Jazz Foster, right?
I believe it's at Jazz_Foster on Twitter, at Jazz Foster on Instagram, because, Twitter's a nightmare to get your real name, but I think that's it.
And yeah, so then you can also you can follow all of us at that nerdy site and check out thatnerdysite.com for more of the latest content. If you liked what you heard, please rate, review, like, and subscribe, and maybe even consider supporting us on patreon.com/slash that nerdy site. Every Patreon gets early access to the monthly bonus episode and of this show. And thanks again for listening, and stay nerdy and be good to each other.